Is staying in your job an act of disobedience? Most Christians are afraid of leaving their job too early, but very few stop to consider this question. What if staying too long is actually disobedience? What if faithfulness is no longer staying and God is waiting for you to trust Him with obedience? In this video, we're going to talk about when staying is no longer faithful, how to discern that biblically, and how to recognize the difference between patience and delay. Christians are often taught to endure, to persevere, to remain faithful under pressure. And those are biblical values, but endurance without discernment can turn into fear, and patience without obedience can become delay. Scripture shows us that there are seasons God brings to an end, and refusing to move when He says go can cost us just as much as leaving too early. Lot stayed in Sodom far longer than he should have. What began as proximity became entanglement. Comfort dulled discernment, and familiarity reduced urgency. God in His mercy still rescued Lot, but Lot lost much along the way. The lesson isn't condemnation, it's clarity, because sometimes God warns us not because we're doing something wrong, or we're evil or sinful, but because we're lingering. Israel was delivered from Egypt, but many struggled to move forward. They longed for the familiar, even when God was leading them into promise. They delayed obedience because the unknown felt frightening. God's direction didn't change, but their fear slowed their movement. Staying wasn't faithfulness, it was hesitation. I remember a season in my life where I overstayed my time in a job and the city where I lived and worked. I had become totally blinkered to such an extent I had convinced myself that changing my life wasn't even an option. Without realizing it, fear and a false sense of security had delayed my next season in life. And it was costing me spiritually because God wanted to do things in me that needed something from me. And that was to move from London to Ireland in this case. That's all I knew. And while I had family there, it was still a massive leap of faith. Once that happened, everything changed. My walk with the Lord was transformed. I met some of the most influential believers I've ever met. And I also got a new job, which I enjoyed. And I got together with my wife. So in hindsight, it wasn't being faithful, I was being cautious in a way that avoided trust. So I want to share with you some prompts to help you spot when staying may no longer be obedience. Number 1, God's conviction has been consistent, not fleeting. 2, Scripture confirms what your spirit senses. 3, wise counsel gently affirms the same direction. 4, you're no longer growing but shrinking spiritually. 5, fear is the primary reason you remain where you are. See, God doesn't rush, but He does invite responses. And faithfulness isn't defined by staying or leaving, it's defined by obedience. The question is never what feels safest. The question is, Lord, what are you asking of me now? And sometimes obedience requires endurance. Sometimes obedience requires courage, but both require trust. If you found this in any way useful, please consider subscribing, liking, and commenting. And if you want to go deeper, check out the links below for information on my Faith-Driven Leadership course. I'll see you in the next video.